College. It's a place where memories are made. We study new ideas, meet new friends, visit new places, have new experiences, and then we graduate. And while we receive a document to confirm our degree, the main things college leaves with us are not pieces of paper. They're memories. This year's Geneva question is, what should we remember? And who better to help us answer this question than those who have already graduated from Geneva College, some of whom now teach in the very same rooms where they once studied.
What is one of the best memories from my time as a student at Geneva College? Well, I remember walking into this very room, although it looked quite a bit different because it was before we had remodeled the building. And I walked through a door that was somewhere over there and sat down in some old wooden seats facing that direction. And I experienced organic chemistry in this room as a freshman, my very, very first semester. It was almost my first class, not quite my very first class. And I wasn't that keen on the subject at the time. It took me a little while to warm up to it. But I stuck with it, and ironically, it is now the subject that I teach here at Geneva in this very room, although I'm facing the other direction now when I teach.
What is my best memory from Geneva College? Well, I'll tell you what, there are so many best memories. I don't even know where to begin. I will say one of the memories that I'm reminded of quite often, because there is actually a visual imprint of that memory. It has to do with a class that I took with one of the professors here in youth ministry. His name was Raj Harlan. Okay, and so Raj was given his walking papers, and so our senior year we thought, hey, why don't we send him off with a bang, you know? And so what we did is we thought we'd have a thing called Late Night at Geneva, and this was kind of fashioned after the David Letterman show, you know, cut picture Letterman, you might want to have that. So we thought, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we say, let's do a little vignette of Raj dumping his stuff out of his office here in Old Main. And so what we did is, and by the way, we had to have this is a leadership class that we had, so you had to have a budget, and in our budget we actually had a budgeted line item for fines that we were going to encounter. So we actually had a line item for fines, you know. So it was on like a Saturday morning. We went up there. We had like a huge, like 2-gallon thing of mayonnaise, you know, and we had, and the idea was Raj was cleaning out the storyline. He's going to clean out his office, and we're like, hey Raj, you're going to need this anymore. He goes, bring it on up, Doug, bring it on up, you know, and so we had like a complete meal from Alex Dining Hall, you know, and we throw that off, and then we have videotape. And well, one of the economics professors was in on that Saturday morning, right? And he was working in his office, and all of a sudden, and we had a TV, we had a huge mannequin, we had like watermelons and stuff like this, and so he's sitting in his office, and all of a sudden he's outside his window. It's like this sort of thing. And he's like, "What the?" You know.
So a fun memory for me here at Geneva was when I met Stephanie back in the day. I was here at Geneva. We didn't have the cell phones, and so they had an intercom system on the floors in the dorms. One night I was bored, wanted to hang out, and so I started to page each of the floors in Clark Hall to find out if any of my friends were doing anything so we could hang out. One of the floors I paged, I asked for one of my friends. She wasn't there, but Stephanie had answered, and she said that whoever I was calling for wasn't there. And I said, oh, well, who's this? She said, Stephanie. I said, oh. I said, what are you doing? She goes, we're going to the mall. I'm like, oh. And there was a slight pause, and then she said, do you want to go? And of course, yes, I wanted to go. And that's how I met Mrs. Schindel.
Well, Geneva College gave me my first almost full-time job. It was summertime, and I was hired to work in McCartney Library. During the school year, I worked at the circulation desk, but in the summer, they asked me to go up into the stacks and read the shelves. Reading the shelves just means making sure that the books are in the proper order according to the Library of Congress numbering system. So I would be right here on the second floor. This is where I started for some reason. They must not have needed anyone on the third floor. And reading the books, and I came upon a book that I was interested in. So I'm standing on the library stool, up on the top shelf, looking at a book that I ostensibly take out just to see the table of contents, because, you know, I wasn't going to take a lot of time. But an hour later, here I am sitting on the stool, reading the book, not standing on the stool reading the shelves, and I think, oh no, what did I do? It was the first time that I had kind of a beginning glimpse of an intellectual understanding of what it means to integrate my life with serving God in every part of my life, whether it's summer and no one is watching me because no one had passed by, no one knew that I was sitting down enjoying a good book instead of working. So I had to decide what to do. Went downstairs, talked to Miss Van Dyke, and explained what had happened, and said, could I make up my time? I needed the money. Could I work an extra hour because I don't feel right being paid? She smiled at me, understood how it could happen. She knew I loved to read, and I was grateful for her kindness.
I have a clear memory of a day in humanities. And when we were at Geneva, we called humanities human agonies. So as part of the humanities course, we had people who were really art experts. Dr. Betty Douglas is the person I'm thinking of at the moment. Well, this has happened more than once at Geneva College to Dr. Douglas, and I know that, but it happened in the semester I was there. And so Dr. Douglas went down the stairs, and she started to let down the large screen in SE15. And as she let down the screen, there was an enlarged Playboy centerfold taped to the screen. And Dr. Douglas embodied the word poise on that day. And she began to speak about things like the chiaroscuro effect and the symbolic nature of the art that we were looking at. And she never missed a beat, and she just went through her entire lecture as though she had planned it. And she taught us a lot about what it means to be a poised adult expert and to just move in the spirit through the humanities. I have one other memory that's less dramatic. And it's a memory of two people that I always try to emulate and always fail at emulating them. But two of the most influential professors in my life were Willard McMillan and David Carson. And they were both winsome. They were both incredibly committed to us as students and incredibly committed to the material that they taught. They were conversant and agile intellectually and had fun with us, even as they demanded a lot from us. But I remember especially Willard McMillan's ability to take the kinds of questions that students ask in Bible class, which are much more interesting than you get in adult life, because no one's afraid to ask the hard questions. And he loved to have the hard questions come. Questions that attacked Reformed theology, and he would just be able to listen and explain where the question came from theologically and why it was an important question, and then answer the question from the scriptures with a great deal of wisdom, but a great deal of charity as he responded. And I have always wanted to be able to do that the way he does and to get better and better at it.
So one of the classes that I had here at Geneva was a Bible class, and back then we had Bible discussions, and Coach Slocum was our professor who was leading our discussion. And he asked a very tough question in one of our first discussions. He says, when your head hits the pillow at night, who are you? Who's the real you? And at that point in my life, that was a question that completely overwhelmed me, and I really couldn't answer that. And so for the balance of my time here at Geneva, I spent trying to figure that out. Who am I? Who really am I at my core?
One of my favorite memories from my time as a student at Geneva would have to be the time I spent here in the East Wing of McCartney Library in front of the John Bunyan Pilgrim's Progress stained glass windows. I came to Geneva in the mid-70s. I was not a believer when I came, and I came to Christ in the first couple months. And during that time, as I sat here in front of these beautiful windows, I found myself wondering, what in the world is this story about? What is this Slough of Despond? What is the giant despair that Pilgrim was released from? Eventually, I did read that book under the guidance of head librarian Jerry Moran at that time in a book discussion group. Take a Humanities 491, it's not a bad idea. And I learned about Pilgrim and John Bunyan's story, an allegory of the Christian life. This is really helpful to me as I have walked my own Christian life. This room in Geneva was an important part of my freshman year, my whole experience here, my growth as a Christian. And so I hope that as you spend your years at Geneva, you'll find places that remind you of important landmarks of your spiritual journey.
So what's the one thing that students should leave with from their time at Geneva? I would say remember the people. The place is a special place, but it's the people at the place that really make it what it is. And there are friendships that I formed here with professors whom are now my colleagues, and friendships that I formed with other students that are so important to me even now. Some of those forged through the experience of organic chemistry, I might add. But those are the wonderful things that are really worth remembering, the relationships you form.
The best things, the most unlikely, I think for me, all this came out of interaction with my professor. And I see the value of that, and that's one of the things I try to do with students. I take students out to Wyoming, for instance, and we do mountaineering expeditions, and there's videos that we have of that. I take students down to Haiti for like 3 weeks, and it's an opportunity for them to be with me and my family at times in ways that they would never get to see me in class. And so I think feedback that I get from students is that having those outside class opportunities is really one of the unique things that they'll take away from them for a long time.
What should we remember here at Geneva has now been more refined in my old age. And what I share with my students is that our identity is in Christ alone. So when life gets tough, when life gets difficult, we come back to that core identity that it's Christ alone who gives us our worth, our value, and our identity.
I think the thing that I want Geneva students to remember is this basic principle that really good learning is always retroactive. That you can't judge a class or a book or the importance of a conversation based on how it feels to you in a given day, in a given moment. And that you will really start to feel the quality of a Geneva education 3 years out and 5 years out and 10 years out. I continue to learn from people that I had as wonderful teachers at Geneva and places I was able to go because of Geneva later. And so they need to remember that good learning is retroactive. It's not all what happens in class for the test that week, that month, that semester.
When I was at Geneva, I feel like I was immersed in kindness. Miss Van Dyke's kindness in allowing me to correct my mistake, Dr. Leota Hawthorne's kindness in renting a car for me when I needed one, Dr. J.G. Voss's kindness when he mailed me this copy of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe 42 years ago when I was sick and missed 3 weeks of school. Kindness and truth, those are my memories of Geneva. The truth of what it means to serve God with an integrated life in every area. The truth that Dr. Ann Payton and Dr. Bob Tweed taught, to say God's redemptive story undergirds every parable, every history book, every letter, every psalm, every proverb, and that's how you live your life, is by following God's story. It has served me well, and it guides me. I hope it will guide you too.